Hey everyone, my name is Joey McDonald, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the pitching delivery. More specifically, I'm going to go through a very basic pitching motion, and throughout that motion I'm going to break down some common things that I see people get wrong, and hopefully this video can help you whether you're new to pitching, learning to get better, or you're at that intermediate level but you've got some sort of setback in your motion. Hopefully I can address that. And if there's anything I miss, or if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below, and I would love to get back to you guys and answer questions that you may have. Now the pitching motion is going to be pretty simple. We're going to lift our leg up, and from here I want you to try to show the camera this outer part of your leg. Here, rotate out. That's going to represent our hip load. It's going to bring us into our drift. Now our drift is key. All right, I'm not trying to push myself down the mound. I'm kind of just trying to help myself out. My drift is going to start my motion. Now from the drift, you got up here, I want to use my hip to get down the mound, just like this, to keep my leg strong. Knee over toe. That's important. When I drop in my back hip, I can do one of two things. One, I can drop down and my knee pushes over my foot, which you're gonna feel a lot of pressure in your knee. Or you can keep your knee stacked over your foot, which forces your hip to get pushed out, which creates our stride. This push is what you wanna feel. Now, common misconception I see people do: pushing with the outside part of your foot. When you push with the outside part of your foot, it prohibits the next part of our motion, which is to rotate our hips. So when I stride down the mound, what I want to feel is the ball of my foot. Our foot naturally is going to have an arch, kind of like this. It's not this drastic, but you want to use the arch of your foot to push into the ground. That's going to keep the weight on the inner half of your foot. Now, okay, I want to take the moment to backtrack real quick before I get too far ahead of myself. I know I said earlier in the video not to push, but I more meant specifically not to push with a certain part of your foot. All right, obviously when we're pitching on a mound, most of us younger guys understand the idea of there just being like a divot dug out where we're trying to engage the mound. So a lot of people think when they push, they think, I want to push this outer half of my foot and push this way to get down the mound, similarly to how we want to think about pushing this way with our hips. The only downside to that is to physically push with this outer half of my foot, I have to rotate my hip out. Now, why this doesn't work is because the whole point of me getting down the mound is to eventually rotate my hip in. So if I'm actively trying to rotate my hip out, it's going to stop me, and by the time I actually am able to get that hip around, it's coming the same time as my upper half. I don't want that. I want my hip to come first. So, going back to the ball of my foot, right here, if I drew a line down my foot, the ball of my foot is right here. And I want to think to push with this part of my foot that way. So, when I do that, and I think to push this way, now I'm pushing from the inner half of my foot, and I'm rotating my hips inward, which is going to allow me to do everything that I want to do. The second part, we're going to fire the hips. So we've come up, and we've worked our way down. Keep in mind, I still need this part of my leg facing the camera. As I'm working my way down, from here on a strong leg, again, we're pushing with the arch of our foot, I can take my hip and I can flip them. Once I've done that, I've come down the mound and I'm here. I want to rotate my hips and try to get my leg to lock out. Now, right here, we're not going to be at lockout. My hips are at 45 degrees. They need to rotate a little bit more. Now, this is where the upper half is going to come in a little bit of play. We're going to talk about that afterwards. But essentially speaking, right now, my hips are connected. Let's consider the hip closest to the camera, my front hip. the hip furthest from my camera, my back hip. If my front hip continues to rotate until I get straight rather than 45 degrees, since my back hip right now is further, because we're on this angle, if I rotate the front forward, the back has to come back. And since my quad is attached to my back hip, as I rotate, we straighten out. I don't even have to press my leg into the ground to do this, which is essential because if you press into the ground, it's the same thing as keeping your arm really tense when you throw. It kind of creates a jam in your mechanics, or it creates a jam in the transfer of energy and prohibits you from being able to throw hard. So, again, from the start, get up, show me your butt, stride down the mound, knee over foot, using the arch of your foot. Make sure your hips are rotated this way, flip them over, and while you're still rotating your hip, let that back hip pull this leg straight. From there, you're basically done. Everything from here is gonna just come forward and hopefully go towards the catcher. Now, let's talk about the upper half. The upper half is actually gonna be very, very simple. I want you to think with the upper half, my arm is gonna stay at 90 degrees. 90 degrees essentially means connection in terms of anything athletically, all right? Our arms and our legs are extensions of our body, right? So, if my arm is at 90 degrees, it's neither completely extended or completely flexed, somewhere in the middle. So we're gonna call it connected. My arm is gonna get to 90 degrees. From here, consider this also like our hip counter-rotated position. From here, my arm doesn't have to move. My arm is gonna travel with my chest. All right, I don't wanna think about my arm acting independently. If my arm acts independently, then I use my arm rather than my body. My body weighs a lot more than my arm. So if I'm talking about total weight, I'm gonna get a lot more power out of my body than out of my arm. So, we're up, show you the outside portion of the leg, get down the mound. That's when our hands are gonna break. And you can almost think about your hand kind of like stretching from your knee, creating this stretch right here. And with the glove side arm, all we kind of want to do is keep it out. Because my arm is dangling, my shoulder is my shoulder is engaged enough to the point where I'm not just going to rip it open completely. Now, from here, I want to flip my hips. My glove side now is going to start to tuck, connecting to my hip bone. Take your elbow to your hip bone. What this is gonna do is it's gonna add to this block that you have going on. My glove side arm now, connected to my hip, all the way down to my foot connected to the ground, is what I'm rotating around. Nothing is going past this glove. Finally speaking is probably my favorite part of the whole thing, and it's an analogy that represents the whole entire motion, and it's the car crash analogy. Now, essentially what it means is this. If I'm driving in my car and I crash into a telephone pole, because the car weighs so much more than me, I'm gonna go the direction that the car was going before it crashed, okay? So consider your body to be the car, and consider this ball to be you, without a seatbelt on, all right? When I'm gripping a fastball, I personally like to tuck my thumb because it can slip. And when I'm gripping this pitch, I'm not gripping it that much. Like, I can pull this out of my hand pretty easily. So when we go through our delivery, we get down, we're flipping our hips, pushing out, everything's coming in. My arm stays at 90, it's coming around, it's coming around. Once I'm here, my momentum stopped. My upper half body, I've crashed. So what has to happen now is I'm gonna start to go forward and everything's gonna start to come this way. And that right there is what's going to deliver the pitch where you want to go, okay? It's the fact that your weight was going one direction and it stopped, and your upper half is just experiencing the aftermath, right? The ball is along for the ride. So again, we're here, flip, lock out, go forward. And everything's gonna come through the throw. Now my last piece of advice for your fastball, or even for any pitch, but I'm gonna break this down a little bit deeper in another video. When you're gripping your fastball, I want you to think not that this ball is rolling off your fingers, but that your fingers are knives and you are cutting through the baseball, okay? It's the same thing. When I throw a punch, I don't want to hit someone right here. All right, if I hit them at the end of my extension, I've delivered the least amount of damage I can while making contact with the person. That's the same thing as trying to roll the ball off your finger, because by the time the ball is rolled off, all you're pulling through is like a little bit of a seam, if that. All right, again, because my weight is going towards the catcher, I could throw this ball into the ground. But because I have so much more weight in my body than I do in the baseball, all of that downward motion is gonna do is create backspin. And the more through the ball I can get without gripping it and connecting it to my body so it actually goes right into the ground, the more spin you're gonna get. Again, you're not wearing a seatbelt. Once this crash happens, this slip is gonna happen in your finger if you're gripping the ball like this, which means, essentially speaking, your fingers are the seat that you're connected to in the car. So no matter how hard your fingers can pull through this ball, 100-something pounds of you, maybe 200-something pounds of you, are going straight, not down. So yeah, your fingers may weigh half a pound. They can go down as long as your body's going straight. That's gonna help you get a lot of backspin on your pitch. It's gonna help you stay true. Again, think like you're cutting through a baseball. I'm trying to cut through the baseball, right? Because if my momentum is going straight, the ball is going straight. And if my fingers are going down, I'm just creating a lot of spin. That's something I see a lot of people screw up. They think to roll the ball off their finger, essentially, because your finger can't actually go through the baseball. But if you just pretend like it can, you're gonna get a lot more spin rate on your ball. Your pitches are gonna look a lot more true, especially when you're trying to throw your slider, your curveball, your changeup, anything you're trying to get to move left or right. If you go through the ball, it's gonna become a lot easier. And again, I'm gonna explain that on a deeper video going over pitch grips and pitch design. But hopefully this video helped you guys with the pitching delivery. If it did, like the video. Leave a comment if you have any questions. I look forward to getting back to you. Peace out, guys.